Okay, so we need to talk. So, I was minding my own business, scrolling through Twitter, as I shouldn't be doing, but I did it anyway. And I came across this. I'll give you a moment to let it sink in. I know I need it. A moment. So, can we be honest and just say that Gays Against Groomers is probably more like Groomers Against Gays, or at least people against gays? Like, so I just saw this come across my feed, and I feel that we need to talk about it. The worst of the sexualization happens to 13-year-olds because of the pedophiles want to because the pedophiles want to lower the age of consent to 13. The pedophiles do, but they're not among the LGBTQ community. I mean, let's be honest, pedophiles are everywhere. Trans people are not exempt from possibly being pedophiles. Like, that's they can be criminals as well, just like non-transgender people can be, just like straight people can be, just like a lot of straight people are, actually. So we needed to address this. First of all, like, I forgot to open another link. 1 second. All right, we're back, I think. So, West Virginia Republicans block child marriage ban. It's the Republicans that blocked a ban on child marriage. Okay? So that argument already is like not entirely out the window because again, pedophiles are going to be on both sides, but we just chew. We cannot keep pretending that it's mainly the left because it really is not. It just isn't. So there's that. Let's just history is repeating itself. It is, but you're drawing the wrong parallels. And again, I'm not entirely surprised, but let's look at it, right? Let's look at it a little bit closer. Let's look at it over here. So, actual Nazis versus trans activists. They are indeed opposed to each other. That is correct. Sterilized children. Now, let me begin by saying that trans people have consistently fought against forced sterilization in order to be legally recognized. All right? And I do seem to remember that forced sterilization of gay people was also on the table in the previous century. So let's look at a map. We have this beautifully nice map that says Trans Rights Europe Map 2016, 23 countries require sterilization in gender identity recognition. But then in 2017, it was made illegal, or at least the European Union determined that it was against human rights, which it is. So now it looks like this, which is a lot better. So that's already like they've already been subjected to forced sterilization and fought against it. So it would make no sense to claim that trans people would be in favor of sterilizing children while people were forcing trans people to be sterilized. Like, how does that work? It's not like trans people are going to be like, you know what, sterilize the children, but we adults do not want to be sterilized. Like, children grow into adults. If you sterilize the children, the adults will be sterile too. So, last April, this was in 2017, by the way. Last April, the European Court of Human Rights declared that compulsory sterilization as a preliminary step in gender reassignment surgery is a serious infringement on human rights. Which it is. Even the Netherlands, where I'm from, has compensated, or at least expressed a intention to compensate. I mean, everyone who lives in the Netherlands knows that if the government promises compensation, good luck. But has agreed to pay about 2,000 trans people who had to undergo sterilization to legally change their gender 5,000 euros. which is not a lot, but it's nice that they at least recognize the harm. Right, let's get back to the image. We're homophobic. I don't even know where to begin with the stupidity of this argument. I mean, did you see the LGBTQ flag? Did you see that it is like it contains, it contains the LGBT as well. We're not the ones, like the LGBT are just buddies. I don't see the homophobia. Like the only arguments that I've seen that trans people are supposedly homophobic is because of some discussions about whether, for example, as a man, you're still gay if you have sex with a trans man because they were born a woman, or if it is a problem if as a lesbian you don't want to sleep with a trans woman, and then there's discussion like with or without having transitioned and that kind of stuff. I'm not going to get into that. It's very complicated. My base position would be why are we using names for sexual orientation that necessarily include the sex or gender of the person doing the being attracted? Like, what does it matter? Both straight men and lesbian women are attracted to women. Well, this is an entire terminological discussion. Not necessarily, not it's not important. But also, I mean, the overwhelming majority of anti-trans people come from very conservative parts of our society, which are also the most homophobic. So I don't see how they're suddenly trying to make it look like the trans people are more homophobic than the anti-trans people. Furthermore, the anti-trans people are using the same fucking rhetoric that was used against gay people in the previous century and against people of color before that. Like, it's all like, yeah, they can live their life and that's fine as long as they don't live next to me, as long as they don't teach in our schools, as long as they don't show them being trans or gay in public. Like, all kinds of stuff. Like, it was treated as a social contagion as well, being gay. Like, no teachers in my school don't teach about gay being a possibility because kids are influenceable and they're all going to be gay. And if that was the case, no one would have been gay before this stuff started getting taught in schools and before social media was invented. Like, people were gay centuries ago. And not because they saw a gay person. If sexuality is infectious, everyone would be straight because they're by far the largest group. Yeah, this is just. Well, then there's the whole groomer panic stuff, because that's the same argument they use with the homosexuals. Like, don't let the gay people near your kids because they are grooming them, and teaching them about being gay is grooming. And remember Anita Bryant, and it's the same arguments all over again. Also, about gay people were like, it's a conspiracy theory, like the gay agenda, and it's done to destroy traditional family, to destroy the nuclear family, destroy society. And now they're saying that about trans people. Like, even I'm old enough to remember them saying that about gay people, and I'm not that old. They're saying that it's unnatural because you're born as a woman or you're born as a man, and people also assume that you were just born straight and then turned gay, which is not the case. But they're saying that it's a disease, that's where gay conversion therapy came from, and now they're basically talking about trans conversion therapy because they're saying that instead of performing surgery, we should be giving them therapy, as if that is going to help. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. And they throw out arguments like, yeah, but you're not going to perform liposuction on someone who's anorexic, right? Well, that's true, because that would seriously endanger their health. In the case of transition, there are risks, sure, but they aren't significantly higher than when someone has had an injury and needs genital reconstruction surgery. they aren't significantly higher than when someone, just a regular cisgender woman, wants breast implants. And surgeries are performed on intersex kids too, and I'm not going to get into the ethics of that, but you don't hear them talking about the surgeries performed on intersex kids, because this is all about hating the transes. It's just the same stuff all over again, just like with gay people. And again, you know who are the homophobes? It is generally the conservative right. It's generally, especially in the US, it's the Republicans. Like, we know this. It's not new. So the next argument is sadistic doctors, like, pardon me, who said they are sadistic? That's kind of an assumption. You're kind of stealing a few bases there. Experiment on mentally ill patients. Let me say, puberty blockers, hormone replacement therapy, bottom surgery, and top surgery, all these things, are treatments, are things that were developed for cis people. Okay? Puberty blockers were developed decades ago, and yeah, they're also used for a bunch of other things, but they're also given to kids who enter puberty too soon. And you don't hear them about that. And yeah, it has some risk for like bone density and stuff, but I'd argue that having a healthy puberty with your peers at the same time as your peers, I'd argue that that is more important than a bit of bone density loss. Then about the puberty blockers, I mean, it's been used for decades. And in trans people, in trans youth, it's usually used even later because it would be used at the time that children normally enter puberty, while in precocious puberty, it's used even younger. You don't hear them talk about that. And then there's the hormone replacement therapy, which is well attested, like not specifically for gender reassignment or anything like that, but we've been given hormones to a lot of people, like for menopause or for like any kind of hormonal issues that one might have. We know what it does. Not new. It's not an experiment. Oh yeah, someone tried to argue with me that giving puberty blockers is experimental in trans kids because we don't know if it actually alleviates gender dysphoria. But while that might be true, and I don't even think that is, but while that might be true, that doesn't make the drug necessarily experimental because people were not raising concerns about whether it would treat gender dysphoria. Nobody fucking gives a shit. Nobody was arguing whether it treats gender dysphoria. They were saying it's medically dangerous and like there's side effects. So they're only talking medically, and medically we already know full well what it does to children. It's not new. Okay? And yes, hormone replacement therapy can indeed sterilize you, but you ought to be fully informed before that happens. And also, having children is not the single most important part of every single human being's life. Like, I'm not knocking anybody who likes having children, who loves having children, who thinks that them having children was the most important part of their life. I love that for you. That's great. Don't force it on others. People are within their rights, especially as adults, by the way, to undergo any kind of treatment that would also sterilize them. And I've even heard of people who were given the opportunity to freeze their eggs or their sperm before they started hormones, which is great. Like, at most, you won't be able to make someone pregnant through having sex yourself, or you won't be able to get pregnant through having sex yourself, or be able to carry the child yourself. But if that's what you want, and if you're fine with that, go do it. Oh god, this video is already like 15 minutes long. We aren't even halfway. Okay, let's power through. So then there's the top surgery. I mean, I don't have to explain to anyone that breast implants are not developed for trans people, but were developed for, you know, women who wanted bigger boobs. And then for men, for trans men, mastectomy. We've done mastectomies ever since there was breast cancer. Well, not literally, ever since we decided that mastectomies were a treatment for breast cancer. You get the point. So that's also not new. It's also not an experiment. Okay? And these bottom surgeries have already been done for cis people for ages. If you had an injury and you need reconstructive surgery, or if you are born intersex, or if you've had some kind of treatment that requires things to be, fixed in any kind of way, that's also not new. And also, once again, if they're adults, it's their body, it's their choice, it's their decision. If you don't want to do it yourself, then don't do it. But don't force it on others who don't have the same values and priorities as you do, okay? And if it's on minors, as far as I know, bottom surgery isn't even done on minors. And even still, it should be under guidance of therapists and doctors, and preferably with the parents, Just like any surgery, because there are boys with gynecomastia where they grow boobs who get a mastectomy because they're getting bullied, and nobody is throwing a fit over that, even though that's also cutting into a healthy body part. Or, what I once read? There was someone who was like, cutting off breasts that have never known a lover's caress. So now we're sympathizing more with someone's breast tissue than with the person? You with me? Also, a boy with gynecomastia also has healthy tissues that has never known a lover's caress. And so then there's the promoted eugenics thing. To get back to the sterilizing thing, forcing people to be sterilized is eugenics, okay? Can we get that clear? Like, if you force someone to be sterilized, it's more or less like, hey, you are not allowed to reproduce anymore. And I've been arguing with so many people on Twitter whose arguments basically came down to eugenics as well. Like, there was this one guy who was all like, yeah, but it weakens the species, or it was wild. It was such a mask-off moment. It was wild. So, no. We're threatened by free speech. Okay, remind me, which side was claiming that we were erasing womanhood by allowing trans women to be women and using trans and cis for men and women? Like, there's men, and then there's cis men and trans men. You have women, and then you have trans women and cis women. And then people were all like, oh, you're erasing womanhood and you're taking away our sex-based rights, and cis is a slur. Don't let the Romans know. Especially Cisalpine Gaul was really offended 2,000 years ago. And who was throwing a fit over people who menstruate, or people with a uterus, or whatever? I was also arguing with a lot of people who are really, 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 really stuck up about a pamphlet about testicular cancer that said people with testicles. And they were like, yeah, but all people with testicles are men. And first of all, that's not true. But even if you reject the idea that trans men are men and trans women are women, even if you reject that idea, not everyone who has testicles is a man. And not every man has testicles. Arguably, even a larger proportion don't have testicles than non-men who do. So people with testicles is more specific and actually overlaps 100% with the target audience of that pamphlet, because men who don't have testicles are not the target audience of that pamphlet. And people who are not men but do have testicles are the target audience. So if you just say, people with testicles, check yourself for testicular cancer. And people were losing their marbles over this. And I'm like, but this is more specific. Like, even if you reject the whole idea of intersex people and trans people, what is the added benefit of saying men instead of people with testicles? And they couldn't give a reason. There was only one reason that had like a slight point. That was just that men is easier to understand for people who don't have English as a native language, which is fine. I understand that argument. And that argument is true. But that doesn't weigh more than the inclusivity of just saying people with testicles. And we're talking about, well, never mind. So I have never seen people throw as big of a fit about language as the anti-trans people. And of course, trans people get upset when you misgender them, because hello. But that is not free speech. That is petty insults and deliberate denying of someone's identity and someone's validity at that. If it happens on accident, that is not a reason to get wildly upset about. But if people are deliberately, intentionally misgendering people, then that is just mean and degrading and dehumanizing and awful. And if your argument is that people are threatened by others exercising their right to free speech by using hate speech, like if you turn this argument around, say that someone was actually a literal Nazi and was literally calling for genocide against every minority on the planet, and then other people get upset, and then you say, oh, you're all threatened by free speech, huh? Get my point? We're really into flags. I don't even. Why did they add that on the list? What's that doing there? You know who's also into flags? TERFs. Because they have a flag. Let's see. I mean, they have a flag. They have a TERF pride flag. And you see it a lot. You see it in like hearts on Twitter profiles. Like they have a purple, a white, and a green heart, or the other way around. So, oh, look at that. TERFs often prey on young, uneducated gay people, particularly lesbians. Now, who were the homophobes here? Let's get back to this heinous fucking thing. Are really into flags. I'm stunned how anyone would think that this actually has a place on this list. Okay. Relied on government propaganda to enforce population-wide compliance with regressive ideology. Let's have a look. The ACLU is tracking 467 anti-LGBT bills in the US. And would you look at this mass over here, this shape? It kind of reminds me of something. Oh yeah, that's right, they're all red states. It's not the left. It's not the left that's trying to basically commit genocide against trans people. Like, did you hear Trump's whole thing on what he was going to do if he was going to become president? Like, especially in Florida, things are getting really, really hairy right now. They're all like banning trans people from sports and from bathrooms, based on nothing, by the way. And suddenly people really care about the safety of criminal women in prison. Now, personally, usually, I'm the one who gets lambasted because I have empathy for all people, even if I really, really, really do not condone and actively disapprove of their actions and think that they're absolutely heinous. I still think that they are people and should be allowed at least a modicum of decency and respect, because I don't believe in revoking all empathy and respect because of something someone did, because they are effectively guaranteeing that they are never going to reintegrate into society again. But usually I'm the one that gets, like, laughed at. Like, well, why do you care about criminals? Like, they murdered someone and you have empathy for them? I'm like, yeah, I mean, I have more empathy for their victims and I have more empathy for the people who are not criminals, but I do still have, like, a base level human empathy for being a fellow human. That doesn't justify anything. It doesn't somehow negate what they did. But suddenly people really care about the safety of female rapists in prison because they have to shower with someone with a dick. And effectively, and I think it was Vosh who said this, he made a very good point. If you're going to force trans women into men's prisons and trans men into women's prisons, that is a pro stance, okay? Because that is going to actually increase the number of rapes that are happening in prisons. So, no, this doesn't make sense. There are also no recorded incidents in several places of trans women in bathrooms or shelters or anywhere. Like the only place that trans debate has any kind of reasonable legitimacy is sports, but even then, it is rife with transphobia in that area. Okay, not important, not gonna get into this right now. I get sidetracked way too much, which means I have to do way more editing, and I hate editing. So, I don't really think that it's the trans people who rely on government propaganda to enforce population-wide compliance, first of all, and trans ideology, just their basic fucking right to exist, is not regressive. Where did you even get the fucking idea that it is? Hello? Isn't it really regressive to say there's no gender, there's only sex? Like you're only your body and nothing else. So what defines a woman? A woman is someone who can have children, and a man is someone who cannot. And I've actually heard people say this, which is funny because that means that any infertile women or women born without a uterus or who've had a hysterectomy or children or postmenopausal women are all men. But then they backpedal and they're like, no, you have the potential. What does the potential even mean? If you're a woman and then you're born infertile, then what is that potential then? Like, yeah, you're born with a uterus. Some women aren't. I can only think, didn't feminism fight really fucking hard for the right for women to not be reduced to our reproductive organs? Because isn't that exactly what the patriarchy is using to oppress women with like anti-abortion laws and that kind of stuff? And now we're all back to, but it's just like a man cannot become a woman because he will never have children. So the only distinction between the sexes is whether you can bear a child. I personally refuse to be defined solely through my reproductive organs. Also, I don't want children, and I don't like children particularly very much, even. And we don't need every human being on the planet to reproduce, because if we did, we'd already be dead. Because the Earth cannot sustain that many people. And just because you can't reproduce doesn't mean that you're not adding anything to society. Someone actually tried making that argument to me, that it's selfish. Let that sink in. That it is selfish not to have children if you have the physical capacity to do so. And they call us regressive. Also, there's this entire we can always tell crowd. You know, the people who are like, yeah, but you'll never be a man and we can always tell. And yet there are so many cis women who are getting harassed in bathrooms because they look a little bit too mannish. And they say that trans people are just performing stereotypes, whatever that means. And they're the ones who claim that they can always see and accurately block a man because of how they walk and look and something. And they don't care about the women that get caught in the crossfire because they look a little bit too much like a man. Because in the end, this is not about protecting women. This is just about hating on trans people. They're the ones who are regressing to more and more stringent stereotypes of what a woman is supposed to look like with their we can always tell, and then you send them photos and they're like, yeah, but this is just Photoshop, and then you send them videos and then you're like, yeah, okay, but like maybe there is exceptions, and they'll always find excuses. Like they'll always say, yeah, but in real life you can always tell, and yet no matter how many videos you send them of cis women being harassed, and actually pretty violently harassed, not like, excuse me, ma'am, I think you might be a sir, so would you please mind going to the other bathroom, please? Thank you. No, it's not that. It's like, you're a groomer, what are you doing in here with your filthy dick? Go somewhere, don't stay away from my children. Like, yeah, that is what these people are causing. And you cannot have that kind of behavior without having very strict ideas of what a man and what a woman looks like. So I don't think we're the regressive ones. We're the ones who are saying there's men who look like women. There's women who look like men. They can still be men. They can still be women. Doesn't matter what you look like. You can be a super butch cis lesbian who is more manly than a trans man. God, that was a lot of thinking in one sentence. All right. What I mean is there's an overlap. Like it's not like you have femininity up to here and then masculinity for the rest of the way. And that's also that is their regressive thinking, because they are under the impression that we are arguing that tomboys are boys and that effeminate boys are girls. No, we're not. All those people who are like, yeah, but in my time I would just be a tomboy and now I would be called a trans man. No. You can be super masculine and be a woman. You can be super feminine and be a man. You can also be super feminine and be a woman and be super masculine and be a man. We don't care. So, all in all, this is a very, very weak attempt from a page called Against Groomers to argue that trans activists are repeating history by using the same tactics as Nazis. And let's look at the actual Nazis, okay? We have Nazis who showed up at Kelly J. Keane Mitchell's rally, also known as Posey Parker, throwing Nazi salutes. And did Kelly J. Keane denounce them? She did not. Just like in many other cases where far-right extremists showed up at her rallies, and she did not denounce them. She just said something like they weren't there, or that they weren't Nazis. Do you have eyes? Are you seeing this? Or in your case, ooh, that's difficult. This looks like Nazis, right? And before anyone says, yeah, but the Nazis are the trans people, they were on the trans protesters' side. And no, they were not. They were definitely not. And it would also be really weird because Kelly J. Keane Mitchell is friends with a lot of far-right people. She even says herself that she's not a feminist. Joanne Kathleen Rowling. Just J.K. Rowling. That's enough. I don't need to say her whole name. She's also rubbing elbows with a lot of people on the far right. A lot of anti-abortion people even. They're all buddies on the far right. They don't have a lot of people on the far left. Yet they claim that the Nazis are on the far left, while the Nazis are generally far right. So they're buddies with far right people, except for the far right Nazis who are buddies with the trans people. Are you confused? I'm confused. This doesn't make sense. Also, the far right is also, as I showed earlier, where most of these laws are happening, is also where the rhetoric is coming from that there's only man and woman, and that's how God created you. Also, in the term, in the whole Republicans not, please don't ally with Republicans on these kind of issues. Like, there's definitely got to be some stuff that Republicans are good for. Not on LGBTQ issues. They are not. So let's look at the stats, okay? From the Pew Research Center. Let's see. See this giant difference here in between Republicans and Democrats? Young adults, Democrats, more likely to say society hasn't gone far enough in accepting people who are transgender. This is the percentage of people saying that our society has either gone too far or not gone far enough. This is wild. I mean, across the board, it's pretty much the same. And then this is a giant difference. And then this is really funny because you think that people are kind of like down the middle, but then look at this. It is just kind of in the middle, kind of in the middle, kind of in the middle. Even the Democrats are not that far off the middle, and then it's Republicans. I don't know how people can still maintain that. And oh, this is interesting. Different viewpoints have been influenced by different factors. Among those who say gender blank, one of these two, saying each of the following has a great deal, a fair amount of influence. Like, what they've learned from science, not that much. Their religious views is determined by sex assigned at birth. Do we see it yet? Knowing someone who is transgender, say sex can be different, if gender can be different from sex assigned at birth. Now, would you say that the people who know someone who are transgender have more knowledge on what it is to be transgender or less knowledge? Why am I not surprised that the religious people and the people who don't know someone who's transgender and the people who are on the far right and the people who are Republican are all the ones opposing trans people with the same ideology, the same terminology, the same rhetoric as they used against gay people, as they used against people of color, as they used against anything? How can you still maintain that we are the Nazis? And with we, I mean the LGBTQ community. And I don't see myself as like, I don't see my status as being bisexual as very important in this matter, but technically I'm a member. Yay. Also, while we're at it, let's look at something else that someone has said who is religious and Republican and on the far right. Yeah, this was a woman who found out that a 10-year-old girl had had an abortion because she'd gotten pregnant from being raped. And she was upset. I mean, look at those eyes. Look at the vitriol there. Like, she was pissed. And she was sorry that the mother permitted the abortion. And her argument was that while the pregnancy would have been hard on their body, a woman's body is designed to carry life. It is a 10-year-old child. And they are all protect the children. It is a child, okay, who was raped. And this person is upset that she was not forced to carry a rapist's baby at 10 years old. This woman was pissed. But they accuse us of being the Nazis. Nope. No, 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 no. No. Not happening. Well, there's a lot more that I could say on this topic, but I think that it's I don't even think that is necessary. I could make a whole lot more videos on this, and I might. Because I'm kind of done repeating myself on Twitter as well. I might just make videos that I can just throw at them and be like, yo, I don't want to say this again, so I'm gonna just summarize it here. Deal with it. I might make videos on some weird-ass arguments that I find, or if any of you send something to me, I'll look at it. Maybe make a video like this. I mean, if you like to see me riled up and pissed off, you're a sadist. But I like the way you're thinking. I'm so tired. My humor is just all across the board today. I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm gonna leave it here, because this video is already way longer than I'm looking forward to edit. I might make more videos on this topic in the future. I might make more videos from the series that I started like last year as well. If you want me to make a video, just let me know in the comments. We'll have a chat. It'll be fine. It'll be fun. I hope. Well, I hope you're all doing good. Hang in there. Stay safe. And please keep opposing the Nazis. Like the actual ones. Alright, bye.